This is the Gutsy Health Podcast with Juanique and Tristan Roney. Hey, you guys, welcome back to the Gutsy Health Podcast. I have my co-host here, Gina Warfel. Welcome, Gina.
Hey, everybody.
And I have a really incredible guest. There's a really funny story that goes behind our topic today. We have Paul Baratero. He is a naturopathic doctor and the CEO and founder of Synergy Science. And we're going to be talking specifically about hydrogen water today because you guys, I get so many DMs and so many questions about what's the perfect water source or the filtration, or do we do reverse osmosis, or is it Berkey, or what is it? And you guys, I'll be honest, I love Berkey, but I'm not singing Berkey's praises across the world, right? Because it's really fantastic. There's some pros, there's some cons to it. I love it. But this is the funny story. Before Paul starts introducing himself, I was invited to a health conference. Was it at your guys' building, Paul? At the Synergy Science, someone snuck me in at the end of the day. I didn't even pay for a ticket. I'm so sorry. Someone snuck me in. They're like, you have to be here, watch this presentation, right, talk to this person. And I'm the kind of person that does the sniff test and everything, right? I'm just like, I am very skeptical. I understand science. I would say I'm a very well-educated person. And so your presentation was the first one I saw. And as you were going into it, I held onto my husband. I'm like, Tristan, we need 3 of these machines, like yesterday. Like, where do I sign up? How do I track down the person that sells these? How do I get this in the office when people are done with their like Hocket sessions and their detoxing and their sauna sessions? I was like, we need this technology in our lives. People need to know about hydrogen water like yesterday. So that's my story. So Paul, welcome. Thank you for that wonderful presentation. Thank you for creating such an incredible product. Please tell listeners who you are and what you do.
Well, thank you for that. That was very kind. And I had no idea you were snuck in. That's awesome.
I'm so sorry.
I love the rebel in you. It's exciting. But yeah, I would have just had you come in since I own the building. You're welcome anytime.
Thank you.
So Dr. Pompa's group, is a great group, and it was wonderful to have him. We're going to do more conferences, and anyone else that wants to do a conference in our building, especially having to do with natural medicine, we are all for it. We are happy to host, and that's why we have the space. So that's great. Little background on me. So yes, I'm an ND. I'm also was a podorthist years ago, and I was in the world of diabetes and wanting to stop or reduce amputations with those individuals that had diabetes mellitus. Mm-hmm. And so my process all started with my queen, my wife, the love of my life, Jacqueline. Mm-hmm. I've been married to this amazing woman for 27 years. February 26th of this year was 27 years.
Congratulations.
And for most of our marriage, she's had health challenges. And it really started when I was young and married her. Right away after we were married, just to be transparent, I said, honey, please do not go on birth control. Mm-hmm. And she said, oh, no, I want to go on birth control. And I said, no, I can make a simple step in my life to, but you don't have to take chemicals in your body. And she's like, oh, no. And she decided to anyways. Within 3 months, she had gained 60 pounds.
Wow.
And she had thyroid issues. She had all kinds of issues. And of course, we didn't know then. It's always easy to look back and see the cause. But at that time, I was 21 years old. I had no clue about, a lot of things. Yep. And here I am, a married man, and my wife's having all these challenges. And we would go to the doctor and he would tell her, stop eating all the food on your plate. Right. Wow. That was his amazing advice. Or don't go to buffets. Right.
Wow.
And we were just like, what are you talking about, idiot? She's walking 3 miles a day. She's in a fat-free diet. She's doing this, she's doing that. And she's gained 60 pounds in 3 months. Like, seriously. Mm-hmm. Well, finally, we went to a PA. And she was like, your thyroid is out of whack. So, of course, they put her on Synthroid. You all know how this story goes when you're not in natural medicine. And at that time in my life, I was not yet. And so after watching her suffer and after watching her go through so much and me never having health issues of any kind in my life, I'm watching the love of my life and I'm going, oh, my gosh, this is hell for her, right? Like every day. And it ended up that we lost her a week out of the month for menstrual cycle. She would be in bed. She couldn't get out. She was anemic. She'd faint out of nowhere. I'd hear this noise and I knew she was going down, and I'd go grab her. I mean, it was just an interesting life. And so I was very, very much wanting to do anything and everything that I could to bless her life and to help her health. And that's really what got me on this path. Yeah. That's why I developed the water system. It was truly to modulate her system and to help her. And also the patients with diabetes that I was dealing with, they also were tremendously helped. And so I didn't wake up one day and go, oh, I want to create a water product that will change the world. It was really out of necessity for the love of my life and for our family. And then everyone else gets the benefit after her, right?
Yeah. I love that. So why hydrogen water? Like, how did that come about? Like, what led you down this like rabbit hole of, oh my gosh, this is the answer? Because it is such a simple answer and it is such a powerful answer too. So how did you go down the H2 water route?
Well, thank you. It's also a funny answer. And yet it is simple. You're right. It's extremely simple. Here's what happened. I was in natural medicine at that point of my life. This was shortly after 9/11, and my world was all about diabetes at the time. And we were trying to reduce amputations. We were trying to do all these things. I had a company, we manufactured shoes. I owned a company that manufactured shoes and orthotics for individuals with diabetes. And we had thousands of podiatry offices all over the country that were using it to spread pressure on the bottom, what's called the plantar surface of the foot. So long story short, that was my scope of practice. Ankle and down was my scope of practice at the time. I hadn't become an ND yet. I was a podorthist. And I had some dear friends that we went to church with in Florida. It was in Kissimmee, Florida, and everybody knows Disney World is right next door. And so our friends owned an organic food store, and we bought things there, and we were just dear friends. When 9/11 occurred, people were not traveling as much, and they definitely weren't coming to Disney World after 9/11. And so their business really went into a downward spin quickly. They had 25% of their business because most of their business was people coming and they were in their condos and stuff, with the timeshare industry in Orlando. They were buying organic food for the week that they were there with their family. And so that's what a lot of their revenue came from. So they came to me and said, hey, can you help us? And I said, look, I can help you a little bit to help you weather through this storm. You're going to need to get somebody else to help you with the rest. And so we did. Me and another gentleman helped them. And when it came time, they were still struggling. It wasn't like a 2-month process. Obviously, travel took a while to come back and their business was in trouble. And so I forgave the interest and just said, look, just pay me back the principal. Don't worry about the interest. And that helped them. And so as a thank you to me, and the only reason I tell this story is not to say anything about myself. It was the greatest thing I could do because the interest was nothing compared to the fact that I was introduced to the water because of that process. And so I'm answering this question in this way because it's very specific. So as a thank you, they took my wife and I on a cruise, and it was a 9-day cruise. We went to the Panama Canal. We went to Costa Rica. We went all over. It was beautiful, but they brought a suitcase of gallon water jugs with them for us.
Wow.
And I thought it was the strangest thing I'd ever heard in my life. Why on earth would you bring like bathing suits, cameras? I get that part, suntan lotion, water. Like seriously, I've been on cruises before and I was like, they have water on the ship, right? Like you can drink it. Yeah. And they're like, oh no, you don't want to drink that. They were all serious about it. And I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about, but okay, great. You're bringing water. And I literally went on the cruise website and looked up if you could bring water, which by the way, for everyone watching, you cannot today. Back then, you could bring your own water. But
that's hilarious.
They prohibit you from bringing water on the ship. Long story short, they brought us 8 gallons of water. Now, mind you, when we were driving down to Fort Lauderdale to get on this big, beautiful ship, my wife was doubled over in pain in the backseat of the vehicle, the entire 3.5-hour drive. And we stopped at a pharmacy to, as we know, ladies, I'm talking like I'm a lady, but to change her gear, right? She was on her cycle and she had heavy flow and she went in the pharmacy, and the pharmacist said, "Do we need to call an ambulance for her?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And they're like,
Oh,
"She doesn't look like she's going to make it out of here. She's like," and I'm like, "Oh no, this is normal, right?
wow. Yeah.
This happens every month." And like, "Are you kidding?" No, I'm not kidding. So we end up getting on the
Wow.
ship. She goes to the bed. She's laying down. And mind you, I'm prepared mentally to be a single guy on a cruise because she will be in bed for a week. That
Right.
was typical. We lost her a week every month. And so here we go. Well, she starts drinking this water. I drink the water. I didn't sprout wings. I didn't levitate off the ground or floor. So I'm like, okay, it tastes like water to me. Whatever. I'm a guy, right? We're skeptical. I'm like, whatever. My wife drank the water and she's like, babe, my body is craving this water. I don't know why, but I can't stop drinking. And she put her fist together. She's like, I can't stop drinking. I'm like,
Wow.
okay, you drink the water. I'll drink the toilet water. Everyone's telling me it is. And I said, look, it's all good. So here we go. Within the third day of a 9-day cruise, she's up and around and walking and doing it. And I'm like, what the heck? And she goes, I feel amazing. I don't know. So this gave me like my first, okay, what the heck is this all about? Now, mind you, this was what? We all know what it was. Alkaline water, right? We remember the Craze. We remember the machines that are all being sold. Alkaline water. Now, as a clinician, I never accepted the fact that the pH of the water did anything for the body because it does not get through the stomach acid. But I had to say to myself, but you just watched your wife be hugely affected. So what is the mechanism of healing? What is actually working? If we know it's not pH, what is it? And honestly, that's what led me on my path to understand what was the mechanism. And I learned after about a year and a half of literally deep dive study, because guess what? Today, there's 962 studies. At that point, there was none. There was none.
Wow.
It wasn't until 2008, 2009 that Nature published the first study on hydrogen being a selective antioxidant. I was already lecturing by then, and people were like, you are crazy in your head. What are you talking about? Hydrogen gas. It's pH. It's pH, dude. You just missed it. And I'm like, no, I didn't. It's hydrogen gas, and it's the electrical potential of the water, because I had learned this from watching my wife and trying to understand what the heck was going on.
Yeah.
So that's what led me. I, of course, got very passionate after seeing her menstrual cycle normalize in a 6-month period.
Amazing.
I saw her anemia go down. We actually used to play with the gynecologist because he was wanting her to take iron pills and all this crazy stuff. And her iron levels, her hemoglobin and hematocrit levels were like non-existent. And he's like, I don't know how you function in life. I don't know how you get out of bed every day. And she goes, oh, it's the water my husband does. And he's like, I don't know what you're talking about, but whatever you're doing, keep doing it.
Yeah.
Well, I said to her, let's play games with them. The next time you have your blood test to show what your iron levels are, drink the water 20 minutes before. And she would, and the iron levels would be perfect. And then the next month she wouldn't, and it would be like down, nothing. So we were learning, we were understanding back then and trying to go through the process. But I became extremely passionate about it, not only because it helped my wife, but then I began giving it to individuals with diabetes. And within typically 3 to 5 days, their glucose levels were normal.
Amazing.
And I was like, what on earth? Like, this is the holy grail, right? If we can help people, we can do this. So that's a very long story, but I tried to get a few good nuggets in there.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And it kind of segues into, one, Gina, you were saying there's a nonprofit organization that just does hydrogen studies. Is that correct? You were telling me about it before we were recording. What is that?
Yeah, Paul, I'm not sure if you're familiar, but I believe it's the Molecular Hydrogen Foundation.
I funded them being able to become a nonprofit.
That's
and
amazing.
Tyler LeBaron.
Yes.
Tyler LeBaron worked with me for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I followed his work for a few years and the foundation there, and I was just so blown away by the research studies coming out, and really great to hear you say that there's now, over 900 something published studies. I want to say when I looked, I thought there was like 158, or maybe they were talking about that it helps, with 158 diseases. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Now it's 170 human disease models, but at that time it was probably 158. But, and at that time, there was probably just around 700 studies at the time. Now there's 962, 115 human studies. But Tyler LeBaron and then Randy Sharp and Melanie Sharp, Randy was an employee of mine. And so it's this very small world of hydrogen, because really Tyler and I were the only two that started lecturing about hydrogen back in 2008, 2009, 2010. We both, and it's just a funny story, but we both understood or came to understand hydrogen at the same time
Amazing.
as we went back and compared notes, but we didn't know each other.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
He became aware of it. He was actually doing door-to-door sales in California and went to a presentation and didn't agree with all that was being said, but he went back to Brigham Young University, Idaho, and started studying what the mechanism was. And he learned through his research it was hydrogen, and I had learned it was hydrogen. The way I did it was different because I found a study that mentioned hydrogen deep in the study, and it was just an aha moment for me. But yeah, it's very interesting when you go back and look at the path, but he's brilliant. I'll tell you, he has spent thousands and thousands of hours researching hydrogen. I flew us both to Japan for the Molecular Hydrogen Symposium. There's actually, believe it or not, a hydrogen symposium in Japan.
That's really cool.
Yeah, so small world.
With all of the research that is coming out, why don't you think it is a part of conventional medicine yet? Like,
or culture, right? Like hardly anyone is talking about hydrogen water. This is so new, but we're talking about like Kangen water and structured water. Why is this not the new craze? Because it really should be.
I agree. So, I mean, you got to understand, Kangen has been at it for many years, and they have, you know, thousands and thousands of people that are extremely passionate talking to everybody that moves, right? And so the word spreads. I alone, and Tyler as well, but mostly it was me lecturing in the beginning about hydrogen because I had been in the alkaline water world. So the part of the story I didn't tell you, after I helped my wife, I got into the alkaline water and we started selling thousands of machines a month. In fact, I ended up, me and two other gentlemen that owned a company. This was before Kangen was a company here in this country, believe it or not. We were selling thousands of water machines a month. And yes, there was hydrogen in there. We didn't fully understand that hydrogen was the mechanism, but it was alkaline water, but we weren't really talking a lot about the alkaline. So a lot of people were being helped.
Can I ask you right there? So with the alkaline water, it's releasing a little bit of hydrogen in the water, but not at the concentrations that this Echo machine does. Is that correct? And so that's why people are getting benefit.
Not really. So these machines that are alkaline machines, they use typical or standard electrolysis membranes, or what's called a chamber. And so in the process of separating water into two streams, one, you will have hydroxides and therefore the pH increases. You also have hydrogen. On the other side, where the anodes are, you end up with O2 and hypochlorous acid and some chlorines and different things like that. And because of the oxygen over there, because you've got H2O, so you're putting an OH minus on one side and H plus on the other, and you end up having acid on one side and alkaline on the other. And it's just a by process. There's no benefit to the pH change, and there's no stability to the pH change either. You can put a couple drops of lemon juice in it and it plummets. It'll go from a 10 down to a 2 in no time. So we know that's also happening in the stomach. What happens when these machines are brand spanking new? They're producing a lot of hydrogen, which is why you have people with Kangen machines that have wonderful experiences in the first few weeks, is because there is a lot of hydrogen in the water. But within 2 weeks to 3 weeks, the calcium from the water will precipitate and it'll be attracted or have an affinity to the cathode in the electrolysis chamber. And when the calcium bonds onto the electrode surface, the hydrogen bubbles no longer stay tiny. They coalesce, they get larger because they group together, and therefore you can't dissolve them anymore. And so you see them and they go right out to atmosphere. So you don't get the benefits. So even, and Kangen people will not tell you this when you're purchasing the machine, but in their warranty, it says you must clean the machine every 2 weeks if you want to have hydrogen. You don't ever know that if you don't ever read the warranty fully, but also it's well after you've spent the $4,000 or $6,000. So that's the problem. Now, the alkaline machine that I was selling at the time, we had a patent, multiple patents, but one patent in particular on reversing the polarity of the electrodes every single time you use the machine. So that made it impossible for the calcium or other minerals to deposit or adhere to the electrodes. So those thousands of machines a month I was selling, 15 years ago, we were producing hydrogen. We didn't know that's what the most important thing was. We simply did the patent because the electrodes were wearing out too soon because of the calcium deposits were causing them to overheat in some cases. later we figured out, oh my gosh, we're also keeping hydrogen in the water all the time. And so the benefits were staying. And that's why people said our water felt different to them than the other waters. Now, fast forward all these years later, now we don't even change the pH of the water. We have a completely different type of electrolytic chamber or electrolysis chamber that we call a hydrogen module. We cannot change the pH of the water in our chamber. It's not possible. But what we do is we change the electrical potential of the water, because that greatly increases the gut by selectively stimulating anaerobic microflora. And second, we dissolve hydrogen gas, and the water that you're drinking was never in contact with the electrodes in the first place. So it's a completely different design than what alkaline water machines were originally.
That's really cool. Let's get into the biology and the science of why hydrogen water is so good for us. Can we start with, I don't know if we want to start with, like you mentioned, gut and microbiome and how it's actually super dependent on hydrogen, or do we want to start with like the redox reactions in the body and antioxidants? Where do you want to go? Let's start with the gut.
I'll tell you what, let's go, because that really is where the problem starts, is the gut. All disease and dysfunction starts with gut dysfunction. So let's go back and talk about the creator. It's one of my favorite topics. The creator of our bodies created a hydrogen chamber or a hydrogen producing aspect to our gut.
Right.
And that is how naturally you would have been able to do what I'm about to tell you happens without me creating something. Our bodies were designed to digest food. And during digestion, we have fermentation in the gut. And when fermentation happens, we have these beautiful bacteria called hydrogen trophs that will consume fiber, water soluble or beneficial fiber, as well as short chain fatty acids, medium chain fatty acids, and convert those things into hydrogen gas in the gut. Now, if we had some 14-year-old boys in the room, we could talk about farting and then laugh and it would be fun. But that's effectively what happens when we produce hydrogen and methane and these other things. We have it going out the tailpipe of the body. So the reality is we are designed, we were created to be able to produce hydrogen gas, 10 to 12 liters of gas per day. We should be farting more, people. Okay? So bottom line, we should be producing the gas. And what's really interesting is these hydrogen trophs that create the gas, they consume 30% of the gas themselves as their energy source. Isn't that interesting?
That's really cool.
Then the other 70% goes into our body and modulates, from a signal modulation perspective, over 200 biomolecules, all kinds of pathways, but very important, the antioxidant, NRF1, NRF2, for instance, these pathways that are antioxidant, these pathways that are modulating or keeping oxidation in a normal range. That's what hydrogen is normally supposed to be doing.
Right.
Well, when we overuse antibiotics, and that means anytime you don't have a life-threatening bacterial infection in the body, you shouldn't be using an antibiotic.
Right.
But when we do use antibiotics inappropriately or appropriately, it can destroy the polarity of our gut tissue or the epithelial tissue in the gastrointestinal tract. It should be, the tissue itself should be a negative electrical charge because that's what anaerobic microflora like. But because we have antibiotics or heavy metals or pesticides like glyphosate or other things that change the terrain, we end up with aerobic bacteria and everything gets out of whack. We have food cravings, we have anxiety, depression, all these things. This is what happens when that system is failing. So with the water, we can't affect that system with hydrogen. So putting hydrogen into the gut will not repair the gut. Changing the electrical potential of the tissue in the gut will repair gut and the function of the gut. And this is why the water has a negative 450 millivolts of electrical potential, so that when it goes into the intestinal tract, it changes the tissue of the tract so that the biome and the terrain is reestablished, and you have anaerobic microflora wanting to be there and happily living there. So that is actually how we restore the gut. And during that process, because we're also putting hydrogen gas into the body, what would have been happening if you were producing hydrogen, which is reduction of oxidative stress and inflammation, begins to happen. So we're hitting them on both accords so that they can have the oxidative stress and inflammation reduced, which is the leading cause of disease. And this is what's going on when they drink the water.
So the water is not only water, but it has like an electrical potential, which is changing the environment, which is a healthier, more conducive environment for the anaerobic bacteria, which helps with our health. And then we're also drinking hydrogen, which feeds the healthy bacteria. I also want to explain to listeners before, is that correct? Is that correct?
Yes, 100%.
Okay.
Yep.
I also want to remind everyone that we as a society, as a world, we are in a gut dysfunction epidemic. Almost every single person that I talk with or counsel with, they have digestive issues. And so when we have these digestive issues, we don't have bacteria, anaerobic bacteria, that's making enough hydrogen for us to kind of neutralize all the oxidative stress that's happening in the body. So we are falling slowly towards disease every single day because of this dysfunction. And it's not just like you said, the antibiotics, but it's the food we eat and the sodas we drink and the stress that we are exposed to over and over again. The glyphosate that is sprayed on our food that now goes into our gut bacteria. Like we're literally microdosing on antibiotics through our meat and our glyphosate exposure every single day. And so this is why we are in this terrible loop of disease, because we have completely destroyed our microbiome that is supposed to create the hydrogen in the first place to neutralize all the oxidative stress, correct?
Correct.
Okay,
Beautifully said.
The only reason I said that is because, sorry, you're just so smart and you use a lot of buzzwords, and I want people to really like understand like what is happening here right now. So you're not just drinking.
Well, also
go ahead.
too, like also if you could kind of break down, I bet a lot of people are wondering too, like, but wait, my water is H2O. Isn't there already this hydrogen in my water? Do you want to break down a little bit what exactly that means when we say hydrogen water?
And funny you say that. I love you, Gina, already. Here's the deal. People are confused. We have started to change how we describe our water as antioxidant water. Mm-hmm. That's what we're actually, the eco antioxidant water is really what we're calling it, because
I love that.
There's so much confusion about calling it hydrogen water because they think, wait a minute, hydrogen is in water, right? And yes, they're hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. When they combine H2O, it forms a liquid. Now, please know, it's no longer hydrogen and it's no longer oxygen. It's a new substance called water, and it is a liquid. It's not even a gas anymore. But it's so confusing that, to your point, Gina, we have to explain this. So what we are doing in the device, if you can picture this, we are taking, just for round numbers, 1 part per million of water molecules. We are separating them into hydrogen gas and oxygen gas. So H2 and O, we are sending the oxygen back out to the atmosphere, so there's more to breathe, and we are dissolving the H2 gas back into the H2O liquid water. So just as Perrier, that's water with carbon dioxide, we are putting hydrogen gas into water, and it's riding along, happy, riding along. It gets into your body where it can modulate, or what we call signal modulation, into your body. So the H2 molecule of gas is not combining to make a new substance. Right. It's just a dissolved gas in a liquid. In this case, it's water.
So what about with people who say like, well, don't I get enough hydrogen in my water? Or how is this different from the concerns with taking antioxidants? And do you want to explain that?
So there is no hydrogen gas in water when you're drinking it. Like you're going to a bottle of water, you're going to your tap, you're going to filter it, you go wherever you're going. You don't have any hydrogen gas in that. So we are putting it in. There are naturally on the earth multiple places you can go to get water that does have hydrogen gas naturally because of base salt reactions with metals in the water, or microorganisms that are eating certain things and releasing hydrogen gas into the water. There's a river in India, for instance, that people go bathe in that have skin issues and diseases, and they have for many years are getting healed. There's a couple places in the United States that they have found natural water sources that have hydrogen in it, small amounts. Over in France, in Lourdes, you have hydrogen. You have Mexico. There's some places. So different parts in the world have these healing waters, and they have found hydrogen there. But what we're doing is we're bringing the healing water to you so you don't have to go across the world, or you don't have to climb a mountain, or you don't have to do these things. You can actually get hydrogen water in your home and in your life very easily. That's number one. Number two, the big difference with it is, again, it's hard to keep the hydrogen. We can't bottle it. A lot of people say, why aren't you bottling the water? A, we don't want to charge you that much money. And B, it's not stable. So if I was to fill up a bottle, within 10 days, the hydrogen will be gone, because hydrogen is so tiny. It will go through glass, through metal, through plastic, and be gone. And so what's much better is to actually have the source or the manufacturing plant in your own house, so you can make the water fresh for you all the time. And that's the reality. Now, when we talk about antioxidants, and Gina brings up another, I really like Gina.
I know, she's so smart.
Say this. She's coming down with the hard questions, and it's perfect, because this is what people are thinking. We're used to hearing about antioxidants, aren't we? I mean, honestly, it's overkill, to be honest with you. We're talking way too much about antioxidants. But let's talk about what most people think an antioxidant is. Most people think that an electron donor is an antioxidant, and they would be correct. But hydrogen has no extra electron. We're talking about H2, and it's neutral. It does not carry a charge itself. It's neutral and very stable. So hydrogen, as I said earlier, is a selective antioxidant. It does not function like a typical antioxidant where you donate an electron and you end up with a pro-oxidant at the end. That's the problem with antioxidants, is once you have that electron gone, you now have a burden on the body. Hydrogen does not function that way. Hydrogen is a selective antioxidant because it only reaches and reacts with reactive oxygen species like hydroxyl radicals, superoxides, these horrible oxidizing, what's called reactive oxygen species. In other words, they're cell damaging. They cause the mitochondrial function not to work in the body. They cause cell damage. They're cytotoxic is what the terminology is in medicine, but that means cell damaging. Right. Now, a hydroxyl radical is the most cell damaging radical in the human body. And all it is a hydrogen and an oxygen. That's all it is. So how does hydrogen help that? Hydrogen, through enzyme reaction or upregulation of catalase, for example, it stops the production of hydroxyl radicals because it upregulates mitochondrial function. And so you don't need to sugar load and carb load. You don't need to use sugar for more ATP production. The body can produce enough ATP. So therefore, you're not creating the reactive oxygen species, and therefore you don't have the damage on the mitochondrial function itself. But that gets into some very deep medicine, I know, but that's the reality. Is that's why people say, yeah, that's why the people are saying there's more energy increase. That's what they feel first.
So before you go on, you're telling me hydrogen water is even better than eating carbs for mitochondrial function to produce energy. Is that correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
100%.
That's 100%. Amazing.
So it will increase the mitochondrial function. And then let me see if I have this right. When you're saying that there is a free radical or an unstable molecule, will that H2, the two hydrogens, will those separate and donate a hydrogen? No, that's not how it works.
So, okay. In a Petri dish, yes. So there are studies that show when you take two hydroxyl radicals, so you remember you have OH and OH, and you put H2 gas, those hydrogens will separate and complete those hydroxyl radicals to turn into what?
Water.
That's right. Tina's my favorite. So water is what it produces. And that's a very sexy story, isn't it? That's so like, could we get it any better for this podcast? But here's the deal. In reality, that's not what's happening in the body, because otherwise you'd have to be pumping hydrogen into the body constantly, because every cell in the human body has mitochondria. Okay. Right. And every cell in the mitochondria is producing radicals, because anytime you're converting oxygen into fuel, you have radicals left behind, right? We understand this. This is by basic medicine. We have oxidation and we have reduction, two very powerful things going on in the body. When they're balanced, we call it homeostasis. And that's what life is. That's how we're balanced. We're happy. We're doing well. It's just when one of those things gets out of whack, we get messed up. So in a Petri dish, yes, it was proven that H2 will complete 2 hydroxyl radicals to create 2 water molecules. But again, as I said earlier, it's actually upregulation of catalase and other enzymes in the body that accomplish what's needed in the mitochondria to increase its function. They could, for instance, take an organic acid test, what's called an OAT test, where you can do a before and after, and you can see mitochondrial function go right up to peak within 1 day.
That's insane.
Yeah, I do that testing. That would be really interesting.
Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah, they're taking volunteers right now. Sign up.
Yeah, we are.
It was really interesting. I saw one of the studies. I think I found it through the Molecular Hydrogen Foundation. I think it was on there, where they had participants not change their diet. Everything stayed steady, the calories they were eating, and they lost body fat just by drinking molecular hydrogen, and it improved mitochondrial function that much, that significantly, that they had significant weight loss.
Well, you also have ghrelin and leptin regulation, which is why you lose the fat.
Can you tell us more about that?
Yes.
Because everybody probably wants to hear about this. They're like, what? Ghrelin production? Tell us why that's important and why hydrogen water actually has that reaction in the body.
Absolutely. So, of course, we have multiple studies on the neuroprotective effects of hydrogen water having to do with Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, autism, bipolar, schizophrenia, just to name a few. And at the end of these studies, particularly Parkinson's, it says it has a disease modifying effect. Now, that's very strong language in medicine too. It affected the disease itself from a beneficial perspective. So what's really happening? And we have brain mapping equipment here. It's not set up, but we've mapped the brain. Within 2 minutes to 5 minutes of consuming water, when it goes into your mouth, down into your stomach, when it gets into the stomach, the fact that it has any hydrogen gas, even 0.1 parts per million, a tenth of a part per million, it will selectively stimulate ghrelin secretions, which go to the hippocampus, the hypothalamus, and the brainstem to increase not only cognitive function, but plasticity change. 32% is what we find. 58% normalization. We're talking about brain balancing, 58%. This is huge. So for those with ADD, ADHD, all these kind of things, you're modifying brain function within 2 minutes. There's nothing faster than that, and nothing more natural than hydrogen gas, because you're supposed to be making that in your gut.
Can I share a personal story around that? Yeah. Actually, I had Graves' disease back in my 20s after my son, and with that came a tremor. And it was really bad during my Graves' disease. And then after I cured my Graves' disease naturally, the tremor would come and go according to my stress. And it feels very neurological. It actually doesn't feel Graves induced anymore. And this year with my husband's cancer and his brain surgery and him almost dying, I've had this really bad tremor in my left hand. And we had our hydrogen thing installed 3 days ago, and my tremor has improved by 90%.
Nice.
Like you can hardly see it. Whereas before, and it's very obvious, my left hand shakes really bad and my right hand is as still as can be. And now they almost look identical. And I can feel like the neurological tension is actually released a ton. So that's my personal story there. I don't know if that helps anyone, but I truly believe what you're saying. One, because the science says it, but two, because of my own personal story.
That's what I was wondering too, is beyond the science, what is the spectrum of results that you've seen?
Well, you got to understand, Gina, we've sold hundreds of thousands of machines. So we have millions of people that are affected. And we could be here for days talking about all of the dysfunction, disease models, issues, whatever you want to call them, that have been regulated. I use the word regulated because that's really what is supposed to be happening in the body. Yeah. We don't use the word cure because I don't know what that really means. And so what we have is regulation, whether you're taking supplements to regulate a pathway or you're taking a drug to regulate a pathway. There's not much difference. In many cases, both can be harmful, as we know. But hydrogen, there's been identified over 200 biomolecules. That means every part of the body that signal modulation or modulation occurs. There is everything from telomeres are regulated, the length of telomeres. I mean, when we get into every possible aspect of the body that everyone in natural medicine would want to see, we tick every single box. Now, neurologically, it's amazing because I've had these same experiences at our booth, for example, where I've been at trade shows. People have come and hands are tremoring, like literally couldn't even hold a glass. If we filled it up more than halfway, they'd be sloshing water out of the glass. We would give them, I'm not exaggerating, 6 to 8 ounces of water. And 10 minutes later, they're coming back and their hands are still. And they're telling me, I have tingling in my brain. What's going on? What have you done to me? And I said, well, we've released ghrelin secretions. Your brain hasn't had that a long time. Your brain is balancing right now. Normally, you would produce ghrelin in your stomach or your gastrointestinal tract. But because of dysfunction in your gut, you have low ghrelin secretion levels. And when you have low ghrelin secretion levels, many things from circadian rhythm to literally, if you just went to Wikipedia and typed in GHRELIN, ghrelin, and just spent 2 weeks studying nonstop, topical study after topical study, you would nowhere, not even scratch the surface in 2 weeks of everything that ghrelin regulates in the body. It's amazing to me. The first time it happened, I just had tears streaming down my face. And I can remember that day in Northern California at a doctor's. It was a natural medicine show. And a doctor came up to the booth, and this was the experience that had. And I just wept with him because his eyes, of course, were wet. And he was like, what have you just done to me? I feel different. And
Amazing.
I said, well, wait another half an hour and you'll be feeling that tingling in your feet because it's going to go all through your system. And sure enough, he came back and said, holy cow, you were right. I'm feeling that. So for me, there's not much we can't affect. Why? Because hydrogen is supposed to be in your body. Right. Hydrogen is supposed to be there regulating all this stuff. I am not amazing. I did not do anything amazing. The creator made you to be amazing in the first place. Right. What happened is some people decided that farming would be better if we put a lot of chemicals in it. Right. And when you ingest that, it disrupts your antioxidant system. But what people do not understand fully is you're disrupting your immune function. 70% of immune function is based on gut health, and gut health is what? Bacteria. So we got to start talking about it a little more specific, because all these words like leaky gut, who the heck knows? Is stuff coming out of your gut, down your leg or something? I don't even know what that means. But the reality, what the heck's leaky gut? Nothing's leaking. I mean, come on, let's be real. You have a bacterial problem, and it's anaerobic microflora that is not appropriately in the gut. You should have 91 and 96% of anaerobic microflora. And the problem is when the polarity of the gut changes, a lot of things change. Your food cravings.
If you're adding these hydrogen gases to the gut, is it safe for people with SIBO?
Yes.
That's what I was wondering too, actually.
I'm gonna say this quietly because I feel for people with SIBO. I feel for people with this stuff because it is utter hell every day of your life, walking around this planet, not being able to figure out what you can eat because it changes every dang day. You ate something yesterday and it was fine, and today it's not. It's utter hell. And I feel for you. And I want to give you a big hug and just tell you I love you and we can help you get through this. But unfortunately, people with SIBO know pain, and they know constant pain, and they know what that is like to have no clue what a cause and effect really is anymore, because it constantly is changing. This is what I would tell you. If you are willing to go through a few days to a week and a half of pain, which you're used to anyways, and that's what they always say, well, what's the difference? I'm in pain every day. But if you're willing to go through it on purpose, after that week and a half, you'll start to see differences, because the body does need to heal the gut, and inflammation is the process that will come in, and it will be a little bit painful in the gut and frustrating, but you'll be able to get through that and your system will begin to function normally. yes, we have helped a lot of people. Not everybody, because not everybody is willing to go through it.
Yeah.
And sometimes there are additional issues they need to handle with
Right.
vitamin B issues and some other
Right.
stuff. But the point that I'm making is we can help most people with gut dysfunction. We can.
And another thing that you mentioned at your presentation was this hydrogen water and cancers, or specifically colon cancers. Can you briefly tell people about the research around that?
Yeah. So now something I want to say, someone called me, a doctor called me the other day, because we work with a lot of doctors and they educate their patients on our products in their office, and a lot of functional MDs, for example. And I say to them, they're like, well, will it help cancer? And I'm like, listen, hydrogen doesn't help disease models.
Right.
Hydrogen regulates oxidative stress and inflammation.
And prevents
And we
disease.
have 962 studies confirming the fact that hydrogen regulates or reduces oxidative stress and inflammation. Now, the leading cause of disease, and it doesn't matter which one you choose, you can choose from hundreds of them. There's so many to choose from. The leading cause of disease is oxidative stress and inflammation.
Yep.
And there are multiple pathways to get to oxidative stress and inflammation.
Right.
So hydrogen does an excellent job at reducing oxidative stress and inflammation, which is the cause of disease. And that's why you see studies saying that type 2 diabetes can be prevented with hydrogen water. That's why you see statements in colon cancer studies saying that colon cancer can be prevented with hydrogen water. It's because of oxidative stress and inflammation. Now, in that particular study that I referenced when I lectured at the Live It to Lead It conference was an interesting one, because that was one of the very few studies that have been paid for. Most of the 962 studies have not been paid for. They were done at universities. They were done by scientists. They were done in the name of medicine to understand better hydrogen and its effects on the body and disease models. This particular study was on 5-fluorosil and how hydrogen and or 5-fluorosil can help with colon cancer. Now, it's
5-fluorosil is a chemo drug, by the way, you guys. Sorry,
Correct.
a lot of people wouldn't know that. Keep going.
They call it 5-FU. Isn't that funny?
Yep.
So That's a perfect name.
It really is.
So it's 5-fluorosil, and effectively it is the chemotherapy of choice for colon cancer. So what they did is they induced colon 26. It's called colon 26 induced cancer. So they induced cancer, and then they gave them hydrogen to see what that would do. Then they gave them 5-fluorosil. Then they combined the two at the same time. So the administration of both. And what did they learn? In the study, it states that hydrogen water had a greater anti-cancer-like activity in the body than did natural hydrogen water, because believe it or not, they went to Mount Fuji in Japan. They got hydrogen water that's coming down out of the mountain, and they used that with patients. And then they used it like through a machine where you're producing more. And they were able to say that there was more anti-cancer activity in the body with the higher concentration of hydrogen than the natural hydrogen water from Mount Fuji. But then they further stated that it had equal to or greater anti-cancer activity than the 5-fluorosil. But when they combined the therapy together, they had 100% cancer cell death.
That's amazing.
So my question, well, that sounds fantastic. Wow, let's just end that and drop the mic, right? But here's the deal. What really happened? Because I don't like just saying stuff like that without talking about the mechanism. And the mechanism is apoptosis. When you have a cancer or a cell in the human body, normally they are programmed to destroy themselves if they begin multiplying inappropriately. We call it apoptosis. Wouldn't it be interesting if people did that? People start living wrong, they blow up. I mean, but you know, what a crazy, we walking with someone and boom, oh, shoot, I wonder what they were thinking. But the whole point is when a cell becomes a cancer cell, somehow, and I don't know that we understand it, but somehow the BIOS is overwritten and the apoptosis no longer happens, and that cancer cell thrives and is able to, funny enough, it's in alkalosis. Typically, the more alkaline the cancer cell is, the more they will thrive. And the reality is you have cancer going hog wild. What they found in the study was that hydrogen benefits apoptosis. So it restarts apoptosis in those cells, and they destroyed themselves. So that's why you had 100% cancer cell death. So it is a good study because of the fact that it proves the anti-cancer-like activity in the body. There's multiple studies. That's by far the best done. They probably spent more money on it, but that's the best cancer study. But we have 5 or 6 others. But honestly, when we're talking about 170 human disease models, there's not many. I mean, we have non-alcoholic fatty liver disease was one of the ones that was published in 2020. And that's amazing to think about, that just by drinking hydrogen water, there was no fat accumulation with people with non-alcoholic fatty liver disease. I mean, that's one you don't hear about a lot, but it's cool to talk about because you're like, what the heck? How did that happen? Right. So these are the kind of things that we see, but we see other things in the diabetes study that I presented at the event on type 2 diabetes mellitus and IGT, what's called impaired glucose tolerance. 80% of the individuals were normalized in this 8-week study. All they drank was a bottle of water this much per day. And in 8 weeks, you had normalization of blood glucose levels. But wait, there's more. Right? But here's the thing. What we also saw was 15.5% reduction of LDL, multiple types. So amazing. Why would we see cholesterol reducing by 15.5%?
Because inflammation is going down, right?
Inflammation.
Amen.
There you go. Like LDL's exactly up because it's trying to heal damaged tissue, and now the damaged tissue is going away, and now the LDL is coming down.
Correct.
So,
and it's all because oxidative stress was reduced systemically.
Right.
So the body took away its patch.
Exactly.
And so it's beautiful.
I love it.
I love the body. And I think the story is beautiful when we really get into how things function. It's a far more beautiful story than here we gave him a drug and boom.
Right. Well, and this is why this hydrogen water, for me, this is why I want to scream it from the rooftops and get it in everyone's homes as much as possible, because we don't live in a world that is supportive of hydrogen production in our bodies anymore. It's gone. Like the world that was designed for us to thrive in has almost died. And I just think of, every client, I actually changed my intake form because I had this massive aha moment last year where I was like, every client that's coming to me has had an excessive amount of antibiotic use. So I changed my intake form to see their history of antibiotics. 9 out of 10 people have taken antibiotics 5+ times. Like some people was like multiple times a year. So we are all being damaged by these antibiotics. We're being hurt by not eating fiber-rich foods anymore. We're being hurt by the processed foods we're eating. Can you imagine if we could get this water in our children now? You know what I mean? Get it in our children now, because unfortunately they are now born into a world with a massive disadvantage that isn't a world that promotes healthy eating. What are children living off of? They're living off of chips and breads and sodas. And, it's rare to see children eating vegetables. And for everyone that's listening here.
And liking it.
And my kids eat vegetables and they still gripe about it every night. You know what I mean? But they eat it. But I want moms, I want women, I want anyone who's listening that let's get this in our children now, let's help their bodies now before they start getting the dysfunction, from 8, 9, 10, 11, because honestly, even in my clinic, we're seeing really young children come in with gut dysfunction now. And that scares me. It's really concerning, and not just gut dysfunction, but sleeping disorders and mental disorders. It all goes back to that inflammation in the body and that oxidative stress. And we're just not eating the foods to help our bodies do damage control. We're just swimming in damaged cells and tissues all the time. So you guys, this is why I wanted to talk with Dr. Paul today. This is why I wanted you guys to learn about this hydrogen water, because it's not just water, it's hydrogen. It's got an electrical charge. It helps gut flora. It helps hydrogen production in your own body. It puts hydrogen in there. It does all of these amazing, it's antioxidant water. Holy cow.
Can I ask a product question here? Can I ask?
Yes.
Because this is, Juanique, I'm so jealous. You've got the hookup now. So
and
I'm like,
and I want everyone to know we have it in the clinic as well. So come into the clinic, get some hydrogen water, but keep going, Gina.
Where do you live, Gina?
Okay. I'm actually in San Diego, and I come to Utah all the time, so I can't wait to come see Juanique's clinic. But I'm based in San Diego.
And come see me too. Don't be so.
Where are you located?
About 15 minutes north of her.
Pleasant Grove.
Oh, oh, great. Great. I'll be out there soon. But okay, so I want to ask a product question. So
Yes.
I saw that you guys have all different types of, machines and tablets, and I was familiar with like the tablets. Is there a difference between that, or is it just more like, oh, if you're drinking a lot of it and convenience, and does it make any difference?
I'm not a fan of the tablets. Of course, we sell them. What I did develop was actually H2 drops that are a cleaner product. So, for example, it's just a tube that there's a liquid in here, a real viscous liquid that's black because it's magnesium. It functions the same way as the tablets do, but it's far less money and it's easier to use. But I designed these for travel. Mm-hmm. It's only for if you go to Europe, which no one's doing right now, but if you're going to Europe for 30 days for 2 people, this is more than enough because you get 90 16-ounce bottles. So, I mean, I used to go to Europe every quarter. And of course, I went with my wife for 4 weeks and it was perfect. All we needed was this because every one of your little local shops has water. And you just put a few drops in and you make hydrogen water. And it's great for when you're traveling across the world, you don't have to take a machine with you. But it is so expensive, so much more expensive to get your hydrogen this way than it is through just having the machine or even our sport bottle.
Can the sport bottle create like as much hydrogen? Like, is the effectiveness there in that compared to a full machine?
Yeah, it's pretty close. It's not exact, but it's pretty close. And for those that are skeptical, for instance, these are $149. So
yeah, it's super affordable.
I mean, this is like almost half the price of the sport bottle. So why would you want one tube that you're going to use when you could get a sport bottle that you're going to have for, years, right? And be able to take it to the gym or take it wherever you want to go.
Right.
And it's rechargeable. And it gives you the electrical potential we're talking about for gut recovery, which this does a little, but nowhere near what any of the others that are using. So yes, you're getting hydrogen, but unfortunately, that's like a band-aiding effect.
Right.
And I hate band-aiding personally. It's just the way I feel. I don't like band-aiding. I like fixing the source problem. Right. And so when we add the electrical component into the water, that's where we repair gut. Now, people always say to me, well, then why don't you just rent the machine for a month, get me repaired, and then I don't need it anymore? I'm like, well, isn't that the way America thinks? But here's the deal. To Juanique's point, you're eating food with pesticides in it every day, unless you've gone 100% organic and non-GMO.
Right.
That's it. If you haven't, then you are eating the pesticides that are causing the gut issues every single day.
Exactly.
So you're doing damage while you're repairing damage, and you're doing damage while you're repairing damage. Only if you're going to a completely clean diet would that concept of 30 days of repairing your gut work. But the problem is you're introducing multiple numbers of pesticides in your body. You probably have 25 of them rolling around in your system at any given day. And so that is a whole burden that your body has. So I tell people, no, you need to be drinking the water every day so that you are fixing while you're damaging and you're regulating pathways.
Right.
And so we do have products from $149 up to $5,000 if people want to have 4 types of water with hypochlorous acid to kill E. coli, salmonella, MRSA, staph on contact, wash their face. If they got pink eye, they can kill it in a second.
Wow.
We have a machine that does produce 4 types of water, and it really was for what we call the hypochlorous acid water. But we also have this product we just launched, which is called Eco Clean, which it makes the hypochlorous acid water, and you just spray on countertops and it kills E. coli, salmonella, MRSA, staph, any virus on contact. And again,
that's impressive.
Yeah. So anyways, we try to allow you to implement all this stuff for very little cost in your life because we love you.
Love it. And you guys, just to talk to the price point of these things, you mentioned earlier that the Kangen machines were like 4,000 to 6,000. Is that correct?
just for the alkaline machine.
Just
It's
so
like 4,500. Yeah.
So the machine that I got, the Echo H2 machine, was 2,800. But you can, like Paul said, you can buy those sports bottles that are 150, and you can just keep refilling that throughout the day. Buy one for like each family member if you want to, or you guys can share it, or just get the machine, and have everyone like, and even your neighbors, maybe like neighbors can like pitch in with you, and you guys can share this water. I mean, like really, like have a machine for each block, because it really is that beneficial for you, and it really is that important for. And Paul, as you were saying about the pesticides and the, we're even exposed on a daily basis to heavy metals and toxins every single day that's in our food. We can't pretend that these things are not a problem in our lives anymore. We even organic, we can, but then we're going to get sick, right? And so, even if we're eating organic green produce, there's still tons of heavy metals in that. You cannot find organic spinach anywhere in the United States without an astronomical amount of heavy metals in it, unless
rice
and
with lead,
with arsenic. Yes. And the only way you can get food without heavy metals is if you're growing it in a hydroponic system in your house, or you're growing it in your own organic garden with your own organic soil that you imported somewhere. So, that's why we have to, or we don't have to, you guys actually don't have to do anything, but that's why why people like me, like I choose to just add, antioxidant water, add hydrogen to my body, because I want to give my body the best chance at overcoming all of these added burdens and stressors in my body. And I want the best chance for that for my children, because there's nothing more heartbreaking than seeing a family member sick, and especially a child. So there you go. So
and I recommend they get them. So again, we have the sport bottle, and that's 10 ounces of water. So, I mean, I know for all those people that drink a thimbleful of water per day and think they're hydrated, that's a lot of water. But for other people that understand you need to drink half your body weight in ounces to be properly hydrated at minimum, 10 ounces is not a lot of water. Most of us are weighing 150 to 200 pounds. 10 ounces is nothing, because you don't weigh 20 pounds. So the thing that we need to understand also with the sport bottle, or even the pitcher, which is a half a gallon it'll make at a time, you have to put clean water in there. The worst thing you could ever do is put contamination or contaminated water into an electrolysis system, because those toxins or contaminants will be more bioavailable to the body, because they've been changed through electrolysis. So people that have these alkaline water machines and have very poor filtration, which is most everyone out there,
are making things worse.
It's worse on their body, because those toxins or contaminants are more bioavailable.
Wow.
So in the Echo H2 machine that you, Juanique, have in your clinic and home, we have a very robust filtration which removes heavy metals, pesticides, glyphosate. We already tested all this. We have testing on our website showing that we remove glyphosate to a non-detectable level in the water. So you need to remove the blood pressure medication, the Ritalin, the class 3 narcotics that are in your water, because people around you that are taking blood pressure medication or other drugs, the body's never using all of the prescription amount. And so you are urinating, defecating, and out of the body in your elimination pathways goes into the toilet. It's not a magic hole that never comes back to you. It's a loop that it's on. And so it does come back. So unless the water municipality is particularly filtering out drugs, you have blood pressure medication. You have other things that you're taking, and maybe you're unaware. So I would say choose your neighborhood wisely. Just kidding. But the point is, we remove that in our filter, and we do have a reverse osmosis system that's on demand, doesn't have a tank, that we're introducing. We have other filtration that you can get to have clean water. But what's nice about getting the machine is you have filtration built in. You have the hydrogen being produced. You have the electrical potential. And then on top of all those wonderful benefits, you have the synergy resonance technology, which we have in our machines, and they're in no other machine in the world, that uses quantum entanglement to put frequencies and energy medicine into your water.
We need part two.
I know, right?
I know.
And you were
go into that quantum entanglement.
I know, right?
Wow.
Oh my gosh. Well, and Paul, you were telling me that the filtration system is comparable, if not better, to a Berkey, right?
Yeah.
Like when you and I were talking on the phone the other day.
Filter. Yeah, it's a great filter.
But this one's better.
Wait. Ours is obviously water's coming at 1.2 liters a minute, so you're not waiting for the gravity.
Right. So you guys, this is a very impressive machine. That's why I had to like chase down Paul so fast. And in fact, he's actually going to be teaching a Zoom class for all of you followers that are and listeners. And it's going to be April 8th at 6 p.m. Mountain. It's not Mountain Standard Time anymore. It's Mountain Daylight Savings Time. So 6 p.m. Mountain Daylight Savings Time on April 8th. We will put a link. I don't have a link right now, but we will have one in the show notes for you guys to actually sign up for that. It'll probably be like gutsy.ch/echo lecture. I don't know. Look for it in the show notes. We'll put it in there. But Paul, we are so grateful to have you on here. We're so grateful to have you educate us about this. And I cannot wait for that Zoom class. I can't wait for people to see the research, to see everything that you showed people at that summit that I snuck into. I'm sorry about that. That was disrespectful.
Good girl, not a bad girl. Good girl.
No, like really, I my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law were there and they're like, Juanique, you have to get down here now. There's people that want to talk to you. You have to see this presentation. And so I'm really glad I did. I don't normally do stuff like that, but I'm glad that day I did. So thank you so much. If you want more information or if you want to order one of these machines or one of the 10-ounce bottles or the pitcher, go to gutsy.ch/H2 water. So that's gutsy.ch/H, the number 2 in water. And it will take you to the Synergy Science website where you can look through. There's also like home filtration systems too. There's a whole bunch of things. We definitely need a part 2 of this, but go ahead and check out the website. There's a lot of information there. And I hope this is really informative to you guys. Hydrogen water, this charged water, this hydrogen water, it needs to be the next big thing, you guys, because this is just mind-blowing to me and it seems so simple and yet it is so beneficial to our bodies. So Paul, if I didn't see it for myself with my own tremor, I would have still believed it, but I've been like, oh, I wish it worked in my body. And it did work in my body. So thank you everyone.
It's always nice to have something that you saw and felt with your own eyes, right?
Oh, 100%.
Not someone else's fantastic story, but you actually experience something yourself, and there's nothing more powerful than that.
No, it's true. I actually spoke with my doctor a month ago, and I'm like, I need to get some testing done because there's something like, and I understand I'm under a lot of stress too, but I'm like, there's something going on in my body, and that needs investigating. So I'm so grateful that there's this water that's actually helping me a ton. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. One thing for people to know is there is a discount because of these 2 amazing ladies. We do not offer discounts on our site, but you will get a discount when you follow the link that you talked about. And that's the only way to get it. And the other thing is for those that say, oh, shoot, I want the machine, but I can't afford $2,500. There's financing built into the shopping cart, and Amazing. It's as low as like $50 a month. They have a 1-year same as cash. There's plenty of options for you to have a low payment, and then you end up owning it and it's yours. But at least you don't have to pay the whole thing up front if you don't want to.
Amazing. And that is the price of like 1 bottle of water a day. If you're buying a bottle of water for like $1.20, that ends up being $50 per month. Yeah. So you guys, $1.50 a day or $1.20 a day, that's nothing for what you are getting back in return. You and your loved ones. And like, go ahead and bottle some water for your friends and your neighbors and let them drink it too. Let everyone utilize this.
Christmas gifts are done.
Everyone's getting a jar of water from me for Christmas.
Yeah, and we even put it in their home too. One thing people are scared about is, well, how do I get it installed or put in my house? The other thing I would say is some people don't want a machine on their countertop. Mm-hmm. All of our machines can go under sink or above counter. There are faucets that go with them. And the maintenance on these is almost nothing. You're only changing a filter every 1,000 gallons. Yeah. So the maintenance is very low. It's something you're going to put in your house and enjoy it, everyone in your family. And you really don't think about it until once every couple of years or once a year that you're changing the filter or doing something else. It's really a simple process.
I really love that. Also, I know we need to wrap this up, guys. I'm just super excited. But also with the machine, it has a countdown to you needing to filter it. So it starts at like 4,000, then it counts down. And once you get to 0, it's really obvious, like, oh, I need to change my filter. With my Berkey, I'm like, I don't remember when I purchased it. When am I supposed to, right? Like, when am I supposed to change these carbon filters? I never remember.
Not only does the machine speak to you,
yes, it does.
Please change filter. It will stop working if you're not obedient.
Oh, I like that.
We'll probably need that.
Yeah, I definitely need that. Holy cow. Well,
there's a wireless chip on the filter. So even if you put in another machine, the machine's like, nope.
No. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You really did think of everything when you made these. I'm super, super impressed. So you guys, thank you so much for your time today. This was fantastic. I hope people's minds are blown all over America and across the world, because this should be known. So thank you again for listening, you guys. Until next time.